This is Look West, a podcast from California's Assembly Democrats.
Hi, I'm Mahalia LeClaire with Look West. Over the past week, wildfires have destroyed and are continuing to burn entire neighborhoods and communities in Los Angeles. The images and stories, such as the mother Shelley Sykes, who shared being unable to save her son with a disability, are devastating. As Speaker of the Assembly Robert Rivas said, the widespread destruction is unprecedented.
The ongoing wildfires in Los Angeles are heartbreaking and devastating for those who've lost their homes, who have been impacted and displaced. You just look at the images that have been reported. I mean, the scene there in Los Angeles, the destruction is absolutely jaw-dropping. And in all likelihood, this is going to be one of the worst natural disasters in California history and quite possibly in our country.
Assemblymember John Harabedian represents part of the area scorched by the Eaton fire. He told ABC News the communities will never be the same.
Our community is shook. Altadena, as we know it, will be changed and forever, and as we know it is gone. And Eastern Pasadena and the Hastings Ranch area, it has been hit extremely hard. And so we are going to need efforts as a community across the board, from government, nonprofits, and our business community to help all these victims.
Speaker Rivas says thousands of firefighters and air attack crews from all over the state, country, and for that matter, the world, have been working nonstop for more than a week trying to extinguish the flames and deserve our praise and support.
To the firefighters, paramedics, police, and National Guard on the front lines, thank you for your bravery, your dedication. You certainly are an inspiration to all of us.
Even as the fire teams battle to stop the advancing flames, Assemblymember Jackie Irwin says protecting the fire victims is also a top priority.
We urge anybody that suspects price gouging as they're trying to rent housing to contact the Attorney General's office. This is absolutely unacceptable and illegal to do in the face of this horrible tragedy.
Unfortunately, even as we knock these fires down, more fires and other natural disasters are likely, and it's critical that we are prepared. I talked with Assemblymember Chris Rogers, who represents the Santa Rosa area in Northern California shortly after the 7.3 earthquake that hit the region just 6 weeks ago. He has hands-on experience with wildfires, floods, and earthquakes. Do you have a go bag yourself? And if so, what do you keep in it?
We have clothes. We have, now with our baby, we have some baby supplies. And we just want to make sure that we're able to hit the ground if we need to quickly to leave.
What about specific items that people should make sure they have in their go bags?
Yeah, because you don't know how long you're going to be gone, usually it's good to have a couple days worth of clothes, making sure that you have chargers or extra chargers that you can make sure that you stay communicating and connected to what's happening, especially if it's a long-running disaster like a fire where it might be days before you're able to really get back to your home. Make sure that you have any sentimental values or any documents that you might need, particularly if you do see a catastrophic loss to your home. The things that you would need to rebuild, many of them are things that we put in our go bag. So birth certificates, marriage license, document deeds, things of that nature. Think really to yourself, if I needed to start over, where would I start? And that's a good place to start with your go bag as well.
So beyond the go bag, what specific steps should people be taking to prepare for an emergency?
I think that one thing that you can certainly do is make sure that you know your evacuation routes ahead of time. Many communities, especially after the Tubbs fire and after the Camp fire, created tools in which you can see what your most effective evacuation routes are in the event of an emergency. And oftentimes local communities are planning their evacuation routes to be hardened against some disasters to make it easier for folks to get out that way. And so it is deliberate why they're pushing people specific areas that maybe they're hardened from wildfire and would last longer with a mega wildfire pushing through. Know what those ways out are and have a plan. If you have kids, make sure that they are part of the emergency planning process so that they know what to do. Have a plan in place if they're at school, for instance, what does the school want to have happen? Because we have seen in some disasters where schools have been able to evacuate effectively, and it's actually the parents trying to get to their kids that creates additional complications. So talk through with your family what you would actually do in the event of an emergency where you have to evacuate, and make sure that everybody's on the same page. And then make sure that you have communication numbers for one another, that you're able to check in with family members so that they know that you're safe as well, or have some way of staying close to the information that's being put out there. What typically happens in a disaster is information in the beginning is fast, but may not always be accurate. And then it starts to get more refined as you go. And as the information tree and structure of what's being put out becomes a little bit more professionalized, we oftentimes have seen in disasters that people have made claims on social media that ended up just being wildly inaccurate. Make sure that you are following accurate sources. That usually means your local elected officials, your emergency service providers, your fire department. They usually are very good about vetting information before they put it out to the public. But have that plan in place before you have a disaster, because it is hard to play catch up when you've got the adrenaline pumping and when you're also trying to make sure that your family's safe.
So you mentioned including your children in your evacuation plans. When is the best time to start bringing this up with kids? And are there concerns about it being too scary?
I think that that's going to be personal preference of many parents. Me in particular, though, with our son, when he gets a little bit older, he's 6 months right now, so we can't really talk to him about emergency preparedness. But I think my philosophy is that preparedness is better than having somebody learn in the moment. Disasters are scary for folks, and especially for kids if they don't know what's happening. It's harder for them, I think, to be engaged. And if they at least have some base level knowledge of what to expect, they at least can focus on a way for them to be productive and to be helpful. And so that's up to each parent. But for me, I'd do it earlier rather than later.
So we've talked a lot about what individuals can do, but what do you think that the legislature can do to prepare for the next disaster?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about infrastructure funding. So oftentimes we know what our pinch points are. We know which bridges need to be seismically retrofit. We know which areas need additional vegetation management enhancements, or where you have particular vulnerabilities to wildfires. I think continuing to fund investments in infrastructure, particularly at the local level, and making sure that local disaster plans are implementable, I think is a really key focus for the legislature. And then I think making sure that the policies around early preparedness, pre-staging and pre-planning of fire personnel is a great example, or CAL FIRE personnel is a great example of how the legislature can help play a role in making sure that they have the equipment that they need to be able to respond and to bolster our mutual aid system when they're responding to disasters even outside their own areas.
And natural disasters, we've been hearing about them across the country. Do you think that California as a state is taking a lead that other states can look towards?
Yeah, I think we've had to, especially when you look at wildfire, and especially when you see the impact of climate change. California is particularly at risk, whether it's from wildfires, earthquakes, sea level rise. These are all things that we're going to have to account for. And yes, other states have it as well, but California, like usual, has been the leader on these issues. One thing that I was always struck with during the Tubbs fire was not just the mutual aid system within California, but then when we broadened it, being able to get resources from other areas. We've relied on that a number of times, including from Australia. In fact, we had a fire team from Australia that came in to help in the Tubbs fire. We've relied on that as a state, and we've spent time trying to bolster our own system since then, and it's certainly become much stronger. But we are the leader in terms of preparedness and response for the United States.
Assemblymember Rogers, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and advice with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
This conversation has been incredibly informative and a great reminder that the best time to prepare for a disaster is now. For our listeners, make sure you have your go bag ready, secure your homes, and stay informed about emergency procedures in your area. I'm Mahalia, and this has been the Look West podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and stay safe.
The Look West podcast is produced by the DCO Pod Squad for the California Assembly Democrats. Please like, subscribe, and share this episode. When you think of Californian politics, remember to look west.